This is the last presentation, 4 of 4, and this is about running, right? You've got in the game, you've got to win. Now this is about how to get to 10%. But I think always we take a step back in order to move 2 forward. And taking a step back here is recognizing that, guess what? You know, change is hard. Change happens when the pain of not changing is greater than the pain of changing. But change takes time as well. So as the saying often goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But the reality is that, as we know, you know, that old saying, which is the future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed. And I always like this slide because, you know, Back to the Future, the actual future according to Back to the Future was in 2015. So here we are in 2018, and some of the stuff, I guess, came true, except maybe the hoverboards. Well, I guess you had those hoverboards that were exploding spontaneously when you charge them. But for the most part, we kind of look and we say, well, wait a second. Here you are in the local and hyper-local world. You're still chasing the same dollars, and you're still chasing those brands that just love, again, like a pig pursues truffles. They love their 30-second spots. They love their TV. How do you get them to commit to local in a sense? Well, one of those other things that doesn't seem to die, although we wish it would, are the 4 Ps: product, price, place, and promotion. Now, I've always believed, in fact, I even wrote in my first book, that the 4 Ps are commoditized. At the end of the day, you know, all products work for the most part. You know, all telecommunications or cell phone providers suck. You know, all airlines are late. For the most part, what differentiates? And you know, I'd like to believe something like customer service or customer experience differentiates. But that's not what I'm going to talk about in the final session. I want to introduce you to the new 5 Ps. They used to say the 4 Ps, product, price, place, and promotion. The 5th P was people. Well, I want to introduce you to the 5 Ps of innovation. And to illustrate them, I'm going to actually show you and give you a little bit of an insight into Innovation Scout, the company that I'm now super advisor to. So the first one is the problem of what I call spreadsheet purgatory. One of the biggest issues with marketers and with executives is that they don't have a central resource to manage you, to manage vendors, to manage startups, to manage technology platforms. They literally are writing you down on stickies and Post-its, and they've got these spreadsheets that keep crashing. Sorry, Microsoft, I know they didn't pitch for the keynote, so I may as well bash them. And at the end of the day, there is nothing centralized that they can use to coordinate, to collaborate, to be able to share. They come to conferences, you give them your business card, they probably throw the business card away, let's be honest. They're just not managing the process the way they should. And for the most part, even to come to their defense, for a moment, the reality is they may not be the right person for you. So how on earth can they, you know, find an efficient mechanism? Well, the answer, the first P, is the P of platform. The ability, and what Innovation Scout has actually done, is they've utilized AI, machine learning, and natural language processing to create at least a technology platform, a SaaS-based platform, to allow companies and brands to search for startups. Certain words like local or hyperlocal or location-based or attribution, all of the words that seem to resonate with you guys are ways now that they can find efficient startups and do it in real time. The second problem is that of what I call database envy. There are too many brokers out there. There are too many people out there that go, my database is bigger than yours. I have 5,000 startups. I have 50,000 startups. I have 500,000 startups. But anybody that really is close to the startup world knows you're here today and gone tomorrow. So the solution is the second P, what I call purge and precision. The ability to constantly scour and constantly scrape, but also to constantly purge a database. Because at the end of the day, startups that are not here today, you know, may be here tomorrow, and startups that are here today may not be here tomorrow. And so that's where an open innovation marketplace helps, where ultimately a company that can find both quality and quantity startups, the most best startups, the most best local or hyperlocal vendors, those are the companies that will win. Problem number 3, you can't automate stupid. So technology is a great solution, but it's not meant to be the lazy marketer's guide to innovation. So the solution here is product. So first there was platform, a SaaS-based platform, the ability to automate. Second of all, there was the ability to constantly scrape and refresh and cull and purge. But now there needs to be a product. And what Innovation Scout basically did is they put together what they call a fast-track program. You know, I loved what I think it was Patrick from Playful said. When you've got a client or you've got an investor that loves you so much that they pretty much quit their day job and join you, you know that you're doing something right. Well, when I saw these guys doing what I was doing better, cheaper, and faster, it was pretty much of a no-brainer that it was time to actually subscribe to the perfect augmentation between technology and humanity. Problem number 4, the tyranny of one and done, or what I call the Tindification of innovation. Test and learn is important. Experimentation is important. But when you have marketers looking at you, looking at technology as a campaign, as a, we did it, now we can check it off our checklist and go on to the next big thing, the next bright and shiny object, it is a fool's errand. Instead of campaigns, there need to be commitments. There need to be ecosystems. And so that brings us to the 4th P, which is the P of process. This is what Innovation Scout calls the innovation factory. There's got to be method to the madness. There's got to be a methodology. There's got to be a constant ability to rinse and repeat, to scale with success, to pivot, and do it on a continuous basis. And finally, the 5th problem is the poison of incrementalism. It's fine to be able to test and learn. It's great to be able to do it on an ongoing basis. But you still can't dip your toes in the water. You have to find the ability to do something properly or don't do it at all. So as I wrote in here, fear of failure is blinding, but in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Well, it says kind. It's meant to say the one-eyed man is king. Maybe I was drinking wine when I actually wrote the slide. The idea behind this and the solution behind this is proof. You've got to be able to get that win. You've got to be able to get that proof of concept. This is a program that actually my old company did with Mondelez. It was called Mobile Futures. It then became Shopper Futures. The idea behind it was 9 pilots between 9 brands and 9 startups in 90 days. So this was all about fail fast, fail smart, test and learn, rinse and repeat, scale with success, test, learn, and evolve. And the thing about Mobile Futures, which again became Shopper Futures, there were a couple of things that were really interesting about it. And I'm happy to share those with you. One of them was 90 days. If the brand didn't actually execute the pilot in 90 days, they lost the entire pilot. And even in that failure was success. The success was, guess what? You couldn't actually execute in 90 days. So you learned something tremendously. You learned that you need to move faster. The other part of this program was the ability to create entrepreneurs inside the company. It was really important to be able to fast track their young millennial talent, to find the lean in, the lean forward young assistant brand managers and get them engaged in the whole startup community, and then to be able to fast track their growth and development and ultimately their promotion and retention inside the company. You know, Google talks about 10x thinking, and it is the antidote to what Eric Schmidt calls the tyranny of incrementalism. The only way to future-proof yourself against change is to futures-proof yourself against change by constantly going back and trying out new things. So Google pioneered, and there are 2 versions of it, the 60-30-10 or the 70-20-10 model. My belief, and I'm sure I share that belief with most of you in this room, is that corporations, no matter whether you are the biggest of the big or the smallest of the small, you need to be able to dedicate 10% of your budget to what comes next. There is a precedent. It's a precedent set by Google, but it's also a precedent that many brands are adopting. Coke has what they call now, new, and next. And as I was discussing with many people outside today, each budget, whether it's the now, the new, or the next, has to have a different set of measurement criteria, has to have a different set of incentives, and has to have a different levels of compensation. If we cannot change the way that our clients are bonused, then they will never ever change their behavior and never change the way that they approach marketing. So our goal is to help our clients get to 10%, get to find that budget, get to fund that budget, and ultimately protect that budget at all costs. And the good news is that ROI is not the metric to be able to measure and scale and optimize the innovation budget. It is ultimately going to be the learnings. It's ultimately going to be a whole different set of criteria, which is if we make a mistake, let's make sure we make that mistake before our competitors do. Let's make it so early that in a year's time, when they're making the same mistake we made today, we're so much further ahead. So I thank you so much for listening to me for 4 of these sessions. I think if any of you are on the fence, don't be. The first step, it's like weight loss, is often the hardest step. The goal is to take that step and then don't stop. This is hopefully the beginning of a wonderful journey. It is a journey that has 2 different paths that can be parallel paths. The output, which is the results, but the outcome is competitive advantage, growth, customer experience or customer intimacy, and hopefully transformational change. So thank you guys, and I'll see you at the cocktail party.